Have you ever been the one who gave up all your youth and joy just to exchange it for the peace of your family, thinking that one day they will truly appreciate you? And then the lifebuoy that is your longtime best friend turns out to be the undercurrent that drowns your last hope? How much strength and determination will you muster to swim to the shore and prove that no one can hurt you unless you allow it? By the end of this story, you will probably have the answer. I am Mina Jackson, 29, an accountant who has been self-employed since she was 20, what people call the tough one. I stand there under the flickering lights of Bourbon Street in New Orleans, staring at the brand new house my parents have just bought for my younger sister Aria. The night is thick with jazz music blaring from some corner bar, the air heavy, but all I can see is a gleaming house, 3 stories of polished brick and huge windows. Inside, I can see Aria probably showing off to her friends while I stand here in the humid heat, clutching a crumpled envelope like it's a lifeline. My curly hair is disheveled, my eyes are tired, and my hands, God, my hands are shaking as I hold this damn $46,000. The streets shook around me. Tourists were staggering, but I was a ghost in the scene. The house wasn't just a gift to Aria, it was a slap in the face. I'd received the envelope from my parents 2 days ago, stuffed into my mailbox like junk mail. No warning, no call, just a typed list. Rent from college, textbooks I'd bought with cash, gas I'd paid off working at a diner, and a note scrawled in my mother's handwriting, "Your family needs you to pay us back." They didn't ask. They didn't explain. They just demanded. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I'd always been the outsider. Growing up in the suburbs, I was the kid with scraped knees and an old backpack, struggling to make ends meet as a babysitter to buy my own school supplies. Meanwhile, Aria, 6 years younger, all dimples and charm, was a princess. She got a shiny new bike for her 10th birthday while I patched up my old one with duct tape. They would smile brightly at her, call her our little star, and I would let it go. I wasn't jealous, just tired. "Mina is so strong," my dad would say, patting me on the shoulder. "She can handle anything." I saw it as a badge, not a burden. Until now. The envelope wasn't the worst part. That night, after staring at Aria's new palace, I went home to my cramped apartment and opened my bank account. My stomach clenched. A $75,000 loan I'd never signed for appeared before me from the screen. My heart pounded like a drum corps out of control. This was betrayal, as sharp and cold as a knife. I scanned the transactions, my breath coming in short gasps. Payments to a lender I didn't recognize, dating back months. My name, my social security number, my life stolen. And I knew deep down who had done it. Not some hacker, not some stranger, family. I remembered my college days. I was 19, working my way through school, counting every penny of rent, while Aria, then in high school, got a new phone every year. I came home for Thanksgiving, exhausted, and my mother pressed a plate of turkey into my hands, saying, "You did great, Mina. We're so proud." So proud it made my hands bleed. I'd never asked them for a penny. Pride wouldn't let me, but they'd taken it anyway. And now this bill, this loan. It was like they had counted my breaths, waiting to cash them in. First there was the pain, a dull ache behind my eyes. Then doubt crept in. Had I missed something? Had I signed some papers? In a daze? Too trusting? Too naive? But no, I had been careful. I had built my life brick by brick, with no handouts, no shortcuts. The anger came last, smoldering in my chest, a fire I couldn't put out. I looked back at that house, Aria's laughter like salt in the wound, and I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. I had been their rock, their strong man, and they had made me their ATM. Under the lights of Bourbon Street with the jazz fading into the night, I made a promise to myself. No more playing nice, no more swallowing the pain. I knew it then. I was no longer family, and realizing that didn't break me, it lit me up. They had drawn the line, and I was done pretending it didn't exist. I sat in my tiny apartment, the dim glow of a desk lamp cast over a pile of papers, and wondered, when did I become so exploitable? Rain pounded against the windows, the New Orleans night coming in thick and wet. My abode was a layer of peeling paint, a sagging couch, a kitchen counter barely big enough to hold a coffee maker. But this was all I had earned by staying up late on spreadsheets, not handed to me on a silver platter. Now, stacks of bank statements and loan documents stared back at me, a paper trail of betrayal. My hands shook as I held a cold cup of coffee, the bitterness stuck in my throat. It all started with a phone call. After discovering a $75,000 loan in my name 2 nights ago, I couldn't wait. I called my mother, my voice strained, each word a bullet. "What's this loan? My name's all over it." She paused, then took on that soft, soothing tone she always used, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You'll understand, Mina," she said. "This is for the family, for Arya." Understand? I didn't understand a damn thing. "No!" I snapped, my voice cracking like a whip. "You don't understand. Explain." She didn't understand, just sighed, and the line hung up. Dad didn't pick up. Cowardly, I slammed the phone down, the noise drowned out by the rain. That's when I dug deeper. I laid out every document I could find, bank records, old emails, anything with my name on it. The $75,000 was just the tip. There was more. $120,000 more, spanning years. Loans I never applied for, tied to my social security number like a noose. The money had gone to Aria's college tuition at Tulane, a flashy car she'd shown off on Instagram, and now that damn house on St. Charles Avenue. My mind was spinning. Tuition, cars, houses, all of them were mine, but they'd taken my identity, my reputation, my future, and spent it on her. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking under my feet, and let my mind drift. I remembered one night, years ago, I was 23, fresh out of college, working 2 jobs to pay off my student loan. I had been staying at my parents' house after a shift at work, eyes stinging, legs aching. Mom slid a stack of papers across the kitchen table, her smile too warm, too superficial. "Just some little things, Mina. Sign here. It's no big deal." I was too tired to read the small print, too trusting to question it. My signature, sloppy, rushed, stared back at me from those loan forms now. They hadn't even forgotten it. They'd just used me, relied on my exhaustion and my loyalty. I wasn't their daughter. I was a target. The words hit me hard, sharp as glass. They didn't apologize. They didn't thank me. They just took my money, my house, my name. I ran the numbers down the reports, $10,000 here, $25,000 there, each one a punch to the gut. I'd taken so much pride in standing on my own, in rising while Arya had been rolled out the red carpet, and they'd turned that pride into their personal ATM. I pressed my palms to my eyes, willing the tears not to fall. I didn't cry, not then, not now. But my chest felt hollow, weighed down by a weight I couldn't name. They call me strong, right? So why did I feel like I was about to break? I flipped through more newspapers. The rain outside was falling, pounding against the glass as if it were going to break. Another memory came flooding back. Christmas, 5 years ago. I'd given Arya a scarf I'd saved up while my parents had given her the keys to the car. She'd screamed, hugged them, and I'd smiled, telling myself, it didn't matter. I'd worked overtime to pay the rent, skipped meals to make ends meet, and they'd accumulated debt in my name. Because of her, it had always been her, the little princess, who never had to lift a finger while I carried the burden they didn't even notice. I put down my coffee and stared at the wall. The anger was still there, simmering, but something else was growing too, a cold, hard clarity. I had spent years swallowing it, the injustice, the exhaustion, because that was what strong people did. I had told myself I could handle it, that my family was worth it. But this wasn't family, this was theft, plain and simple. I wasn't their hero rushing in to save the day. I was their victim, and I was too blind to see it. The rain had stopped and the room was quiet except for the rustle of papers as I folded them. My hands were steady, my breathing even. I was tired of being silent. They had crossed the line, and I wasn't going to just sit here and take it. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make them face it. I was going to make them see me, not as their crutch, not as their bank, but as the woman they'd lied to. And that was a reckoning they weren't ready for. I opened my junk mail folder, and my world collapsed not on my parents, but on Lisa, my old best friend. It was late, blue light hitting my face, casting shadows under my eyes, tired, bloodshot. I'd been chasing bank statements for days, thinking my parents were the masterminds behind the $75,000 loan in my name. I was wrong, completely wrong, and the truth hit me like a freight train. It started with a random email, buried in the junk mail amid the ads, a bank alert from an account I didn't recognize, marked urgent. My gut clenched as I clicked on it. The screen loaded slowly, and there it was, a new account, opened years ago, with my name plastered all over it, but I didn't open it. Then I saw the transfers, $75,000 out, some of it straight into my parents' account labeled gift. I held my breath, and I dug deeper until I found the co-owner of the account, Lisa Eldridge, my best friend from college, the girl I'd trusted with my whole life. Now she worked at a bank with access, with motive, and she was taking advantage of me. At 22, desperate for tuition money, I begged Lisa to co-sign a small student loan account with me. She agreed, all smiles, and said, "Anything for you, Mina." I paid off that loan years ago, thinking it was over, but she kept the account active. Now, with her banking job, she opened it again, using my identity to withdraw $75,000, then sending a large chunk to her parents to make them feel closer. I flipped through the files, hands shaking, and found an email chain she'd mistakenly forwarded to my mom. One line seared into my brain. "Don't worry, Mina will never suspect me." She was right. The betrayal wasn't just hers. I dug deeper, and there was evidence that my parents knew. Texts between my mom and Lisa. "Thanks for the help." My mom wrote after transferring $20,000. "Arya is so happy with the house. They took the money. Dirty, stolen money." And Arya grinned in her new home. I could picture it. Dad patting Lisa on the shoulder at family dinner, mom pouring her wine, Arya giggling about her latest shopping spree, and me, I was the fool in the dark, a caged bird while they shared keys and laughed. Thunder rumbled outside, rattling the windows, but it was nothing compared to the storm in my head. I leaned back, the chair creaking beneath me, and let the memories flood back. Lisa, my freshman, bringing me coffee when I lay awake at night. Lisa crying with me when my first boyfriend dumped me, saying, "Your family lied to you, but your friends didn't." Years later, Lisa told me to trust your parents when I vented about Arya's charity. She wasn't my friend. She was a predator. And I had been her prey, so foolish. My chest tightened, a scream ripped from my throat, but I swallowed it. I wanted to smash something. My laptop, the wall, her face. But I just sat there, frozen, staring at the screen. They had taken everything from me. Lisa had taken my trust, my name, my money. Mom and Dad took her bribes, knowing full well it was wrong. Arya took the spoils, smiling like she deserved it. What was left? Nothing but this apartment, this anger, this moment. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms until they ached. I thought back to every time Lisa had hugged me, every "I support you," and it drove the knife deeper. She had played me, played all of us, but what about my family? They had signed up for the game. They weren't the masterminds. They were accomplices, happy to profit from my destruction. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the room, and something changed. The rage was explosive, but not violent. It was sharp, focused, a blade I could swing. They thought I was weak, that I would crouch and endure. They thought I would never turn around, never fight back. They were wrong. I closed my laptop, the clatter echoing in the silence, and stood. My shadow stretched across the wall, tall and unyielding. This was not the end, it was the beginning. They had underestimated me, and it was their fault. I was not broken, I was awakening. I stopped crying, I took up the pen, took the law into my own hands, and made them the losers they deserved to be. The law office was the antithesis of my ruined life in New Orleans. White light pouring through the high windows, the clang of a keyboard breaking the silence, the smell of old paper and ink wafting through the air. I sat across from a guy in a pinstripe suit, a tight black jacket, eyes sharp as knives. No more late-night breakdown. No more staring at bank statements like a deer in headlights. I was tired of being the prey. Now I was the hunter, and they were the ones who fell for it. It all started with action, cold, deliberate, unstoppable. Have you ever been in a situation where the people you trusted most, family, close friends, used your kindness as currency? When you finally saw the truth, did you stay silent or did you fight back? Let me know in the comments below. Sometimes just sharing your story is the first step to healing. I hired a lawyer the day after finding Lisa's email, my hand steady as I signed the retainer. Then I gathered my weapons, every loan agreement in my fake name, every text message between Lisa and her mother, every bank statement showing their dirty money trail. The evidence piled up like bricks, and I built a case they couldn't avoid. First, Lisa. My former best friend turned identity thief. I sued her for fraud, looking at the stamped papers with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. Then I turned to my family. I drafted a legal letter, short, brutal, leaving no room for their bullshit. Return every penny Lisa gave you, or I'll post it all online and call the police. I knew their weakness. Scandal was their weakness, and I was ready to use it. Legally, I couldn't put them in jail, but I could humiliate them publicly and freeze every cent Lisa gifted. Their reaction was swift, like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Mom called, her voice shaking, "Mina, honey, let's talk." It was too late. Dad tried to blame, "We're family, you can't do this. Look at me." They panicked, put the house up for sale within a week. I watched it online. $800,000 went down the drain. bought by some rich couple to pay off the bank debts they'd accumulated in my name. Lisa's downfall was quieter, but just as sweet. Her bank fired her as soon as the lawsuit started. Her smug face pale in the courtroom as the judge read the verdict. Arya, she was sobbing on the phone, begging me to stop. I don't know, Mina, I swear. I didn't answer. I just stared out the window at the gray, languid Mississippi River and let her tears fall on deaf ears. They had made a fool of me, but I flipped the script. Homes gone, money gone, reputations ruined. I was no longer their caged bird. I was the storm tearing through their lives. Every move I made was calculated, every step a nail in their coffin. I sold my apartment in New Orleans, cheap, fast, no looking back, and packed my bags for Seattle. The money from that, plus the settlement I'd extracted from Lisa, went straight into a new business, my own financial consulting firm, small, struggling mine. Before I left, I sent each of them a parting gift, an envelope with screenshots of their texts, Lisa's bold, "Mina won't doubt me," and a handwritten note, "Choose your enemies better next time." I wanted to hammer that into their heads. I was no longer their punching bag. The law office faded behind me as I walked out, heels clicking on tile, the weight of their mess lifted from my shoulders. I didn't feel happy, not yet. I didn't feel sad either. I felt done. They had lost everything, home, job, dignity, and I had won. Not with a scream or a fist, but with their own quiet collapse. Mom and Dad were trying to keep up appearances. Arya was lamenting her ruined life. Lisa was facing jail, and me, I stood taller, colder, a wall they couldn't climb. The river wind hit me as I walked out, carrying a faint smell of salt and decay, and I inhaled deeply. They had taken my trust, my name, my peace, and I had taken it all back, piece by piece. Seattle loomed before me, a new sign, but this wasn't about running away. It was about winning. I owed them nothing, not a penny, not a tear. They bet that I would surrender, that the strong would take the beating, as usual. But I didn't surrender. Instead, I broke them. The envelopes were my last words. My mic dropped. Let them stew in them. Let them choke on the ruin. I zipped up my jacket, turned my back on New Orleans, and walked away. The fight was over, and I had drawn a line they would never cross again. I stood in the drizzle of Seattle in my new office, and for the first time, I could breathe. The city spread out below me, a gray mass of wet streets and neon signs glowing in the fog. Rain streamed down the floor-to-ceiling windows, rattling softly on the glass, while the hum of downtown traffic rose from below, horns, engines, life. I leaned against my desk, a gray sweater hanging loosely around my frame. My hands gripped a steaming mug of coffee, the warmth seeping into my palms, calming me. This wasn't the sticky chaos of New Orleans or the bourbon-soaked nights. This was my cold place. I would leave the wreckage behind. Mom, Dad, Arya, Lisa, and enter a new place, not richer, not yet richer, but free. The office was small, the dream of a startup. Bare walls, an old chair, a laptop humming on the desk. My financial consulting firm was nothing special, but it was enough. I'd scraped together what I had. Years of penny-pinching savings, plus the blood money I'd raised from that lawsuit. No loans, no handouts, no strings attached. I'd spent weeks setting it up, filing permits, designing a logo, cold-calling clients from a diner while the rain blurred the world outside. The first gig had been last week. A local bakery needed tax help. And I'd nailed it, my numbers tight, my advice sharp. It wasn't millions, but it was a start. I was no longer a puppet dancing on someone else's strings. I hold the strings now, and it feels like power. I turn to the window, watch the raindrops run along the pane, and let myself feel it, really feel it. Freedom isn't loud or flashy. It's a quiet rumble in my chest, a space I've created. I think about who I used to be, the strong one, the girl who took the beating, the one you trusted too much. They shaped Mina, mother with her guilt trips, father with her silence, Arya with her broken smile, Lisa with her lies. But I'm not her anymore. I'm strong, yes, but not because they say so, because I chose to be. I chose to let go, to build this, to live. I take a sip of coffee, black, no sugar, and let the bitterness wake me up. I've escaped, and that's my victory. The past, however, isn't gone. It lingered like a shadow, sharp and cold. I'd sent those envelopes before I left New Orleans. Screenshots of their messages, my handwritten taunt. Choose your enemies better next time. I didn't need to see their faces when they opened them. I could imagine it. Mom's shaking hands, Dad's clenched jaw, Arya's whimpering tears, Lisa's blank stare. They would remember me not as a dutiful daughter, not as a trusting friend, but as the storm they couldn't weather. I didn't send them to close, I sent them to me. A mark, a line in the sand. They had taken my trust, my name, my age, but they wouldn't take this. This life, rainy, hard one, was mine alone. I set down my cup, the clink echoing in the empty room, and crossed my arms. Seattle wasn't paradise. The days were dark, the rent was high, the cold was bitter, but it was a blank page. There were no ghosts here, no echoes of Bourbon Street or Aria's laugh or Lisa's fake hug. I'd left them to rot in their mess, and I wasn't looking back. The baking was just the beginning. I would grow this company one customer at a time until it stood. Not for revenge, not anymore, but for me. For the nights I'd made it through, the dreams I'd buried, the strength I'd forged. I didn't need their approval, their money, their love. I had this, a desk, a view, a name I'd reclaimed. The rain began to fall, harder, and I smiled. A small, private thing. They'd tried to break me, each in their own way. Mom with her family needs you, Dad with his shrug, Aria with her self-righteousness, Lisa with the knife in my back. They had failed. I wasn't broken. I was whole, sharper, untouchable. I walked to the window, pressed one hand to the cool glass, and watched the city fade through the pouring rain. The one who had destroyed their world without speaking. The one who had won, not with my fists, but with every step I took. I returned to my desk, my laptop screen lit up with a new email, a potential new job. My fingers hovered over the keys. This was it. My life, my rules. I didn't forgive them. I didn't have to. I didn't turn back. They had lost me, and I had found myself. The rain continued to fall, washing the city clean, and I sat down to work. I was done with their games, their sins, their greed. I was here, standing there, and that was sweeter than anything they had ever stolen. Have you ever felt like the strongest person in your family only to become the most used? Have you ever devoted your lifetime, energy, trust only to be met with silence, unreasonable bills, or worse, betrayal? If you've ever been in Mina's shoes or know someone who has been living with invisible sacrifice, share your story in the comments. Maybe what you say today will be a ray of light for someone in the darkness of their family. And if Mina's journey touches a part of your heart, don't forget to like the video, share it with a friend who needs empathy, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more real, deep healing stories. Thank you for listening all the way to the end.